Alright guys, so today I'm going to be talking to you about what in my opinion is absolutely the most ugly, unattractive, weirdest rifle I've ever seen. You've never seen one before, neither had I. It's a 250 Savage. Basically looks like a Brown Bess muzzleloader mated with a 30-06 and had a gun that was the size of a 22. I don't really know how to describe it, but I thought I'd tell you a little bit about the history of the cartridge, this particular gun, and let you know what my plans are for it, especially when it comes to deer hunting, so stick around. Alright, so let's dive right into it. The 250 Savage was, from my understanding, invented by a guy named Charles Newton. Early 1900s, I think it's like 1912 or 1915. Savage was the original manufacturer of the rifle that shot the 250 Savage round. And that's what a lot of people that I've heard of that have these weapons, they still have Savages. This one, however, is not a Savage. I happen to have a Ruger. So this is an M77 Action. I'm a huge fan of the Ruger. If you saw my video, my deer hunt last year, you know I hunt with a Ruger Gun Sight Scout. This year I'll probably be using a Ruger M77 270, the Hawkeye. And so that's what this one is. It's got a pretty far back serial number there, so we're going to go look it up and see when it says this rifle was manufactured, because I actually have no idea. So the rifle's not mine, and I definitely didn't buy it. This belongs to my father-in-law. Him and my wife, and I think a couple of her siblings have actually killed quite a few muleys with this particular rifle. So I'm interested in finding out what the history of it is, see what the serial says when it was made. So let's check it out. Okay, so Ruger lets you know on their website that, you know, some of these serial numbers that they have listed historically for weapons are not the gospel truth. But I use this to look up my, it's my father-in-law's 270 that I'm thinking about using this year. And based on the styling of the weapon, I think it's pretty accurate. So let's see what we got here on the 250 Savage. So 7.7 goes up to 1984. And I'll tell you what, I'll go ahead and zoom in on this screen so you guys can see it a little bit better. All right, guys, so I'm not a huge master of firearms history or serial numbers or any of that. I know a lot of people are way into it, but I'm finding it's a little concerning here. So they're showing the M77 original Tang safety model rifle, which is exactly what I have. It doesn't have the 3-stage on the side of the bolt. It's got the one behind the bolt. Started in 1968, so your serial number there is 1. And it goes all the way until 1984. However, the highest that they run this serial number is 77 series. On this 250 Savage, it's marked as 7983716. When I go over here to the M77 Mark II, it starts in 1989 at 780, 781, 72, 73 as it progresses through the years. So between 84 and 89, there's a gap in production. Now, is it a Mark I? Was there a Mark I production line? Yes, but the Mark I fell under the 780 series, if I remember correctly. The other thing that I noticed when I go back to the M77 original serial number series is it lists the available calibers. 22 250, 223, 220 Swift, 6mm Remington, 65mm, 243, 257. Came up with a site that's not Ruger's site, it's silverkennel.com. And they list the M77 series, 70 up to 75 here, then you go down a little more rifles, 1983 to 1993, which is where the gap falls. M77, 77 series in 83, 77 in 84, 79 series, which is what this is, 1985. It looks like the first one was 7978671. And then in 1986, the year next, it jumps up to 770, which I think that would have been the Mark IV transition. So maybe the Mark IV didn't start at 780. Or sorry, Mark II, not Mark IV. So I'm not sure what I'm dealing with here, to be honest with you. Yeah, so there's your barrel right there. Sturm Ruger & Co. All the way down the length of the barrel. So doesn't look like there's any kind of weird anomaly or Savage gun mated somehow to a Ruger receiver with a Savage bolt or anything like that. All the way down the length of the barrel, it's pretty much, you can tell it's whatever this thing is. This is definitely how it was made. And so yeah, this is the gun as it came to me. It's definitely seen some use, seen some time. This is an old Weaver scope that they've got mounted on top of it. But it seems to work. From everyone who I've talked to has shot it, they haven't had a problem with it. It's just got that interesting stock, almost like a GI style stock off a World War II weapon that runs the entire length of the barrel, and is capped off flush with the end of the barrel. It's got that classic old school low setting barrel or bolt down there. The tank safety has the serial number mentioned. It's got a floor plate magazine release, of course, checkering on the stock. I think those are probably even the original scope mounts for it. And then it has a front post sight and a rear sight as well that sits up in front of the receiver and in front of the scope. All right, so another little kind of piece of trivia I didn't know about the 250 Savage was that it's was originally named the 250-3000. And when this thing was originally invented by Charles Newton, it was shooting at about 2,800 feet per second with a 100-grain bullet because he recognized the necessity of having a bullet that could travel fast, give you a flatter trajectory, therefore less Kentucky windage is necessary, but you still got to have terminal velocity and 800 to 1,000 foot-pounds of energy when it impacts at the end. So velocity is important, but you got to have the weight. And Newton felt like he found that mix there. However, Savage realized that they could market the 250 Savage as a very unique weapon that would gain probably more marketing attention, not practicality for its purpose, but literally just to sell more by calling it the 250-3000. 3000 meaning the first weapon that could hit 3,000 feet per second, the first ever. And again, I looked up the date. This was 1915. I was kind of wrong when I said 1912. So they dropped the bullet down to an 87 grain 25 caliber bullet in order to reach the 3,000 feet per second velocity so that they could market it as this amazing fast flat shooting cartridge. Charles Newton, the original inventor, though, from my understanding, had some reservations about that. Again, the trade-off between speed and trajectory with terminal velocity and energy when it impacts the animal. And that is still, isn't that the argument that we hear today about most weapons? People like the 6.5, but people like the 338 because they feel like they need the extra power when it hits the animal. They don't like the extra power when it hits them in the shoulder, though. And that's one thing where this gun was supposed to actually really shine. It's been touted as an excellent cartridge and an excellent rifle for small to medium-sized game up to deer. I was skeptical that would include mule deer because, most of your good mule deer bucks are well over 200 pounds. Your whitetails, 120, 130. But, this is just from my wife's family's experience. Supposedly they never had a problem knocking down muleys with this thing. So as far as hunting purposes, and they stopped calling it the 250-3000 because I think most people realize if you're going to knock a deer down, 87 grains is, I know shot placement's important, but that's just still kind of iffy, especially once you get out there to these 200, 300 yard shots, which is what this gun was supposed to be doing. So I've got here a box, and man, isn't that awesome looking? That is an old box of Sierra bullets. I can't even tell. It looks like the cost was still in single digits. It's crazy. So this right here is a 100-grain bullet. This is the Sierra Spitzer, which they still make that exact same bullet now for several calibers. 100 grain. It's not boat tail, flat bottom bullet. If you're looking at the boat tail side, this is an old box of Hornadies again, of 117 grain boat T BTSP. I don't remember what the SP means, spear point maybe, but BT would be boat tail. That's just so cool to see them old boxes. Anyway, yeah, I got a box of those. But there's an example of a loaded up cartridge. Stout little sucker, looks about like a 243. Almost looks exactly like a 243. You know, I look at these though and I have a hard time. I mean, there's such a small difference between a 22 caliber of a 223, you know, 5.56 and a 25 caliber bullet. I mean, I don't know. I'm gonna have to see it to believe it on you know, 200 or 300 yard shot on a mule deer. Got another box of reloads here that are already done up and reprimed. It'll be interesting to see how it flies with these, but you know, I'm not going to get too crazy on my reloading with it because the deer hunt's less than a month away. As far as dies, and I use a RCBS Rock Chuck press. It's the junior one. It's single stage press, nothing fancy. It's really old, but yeah, I got a set of RCBS full length dies in here. So it's just the 2 dies that I'll be using in the press. So, I mean, I know I make fun of it and say it's ugly, all in jest, of course, but I mean, you know, this is your standard Ruger M77 action. It's a great action. I love it. It's a, you know, it doesn't have a really short bolt throw like the Weatherby's advertise. That's kind of their bread and butter, is short and fast and on the bolt as well as the rounds, though not the brass. But yeah, it's action is super smooth on it. I did make sure it's clear there's nothing in it before I've set it here on the table. The trigger pull, yeah, it's kind of got the old school type trigger pull. I like the wider, flatter face trigger, but as you pull it, you get a little bit of sponge right before it breaks. But it's a light break. I'm actually surprised that the trigger breaks that light in this old of a rifle. I would say it's probably breaking it probably right at 4 pounds, maybe 3.75 or something. It's not like, you know, 2.5 pounds I had on my Timony trigger that I put in the 30-06, but I mean, it's a nice easy break, great for hunting. What I've been told is that this rifle is an awesome rifle to consider for kids, people that are maybe a little bit averse to recoil, but if nothing else, the first time hunter, this could be a good rifle to think about. And you know, the price on them, I'm not sure what we're looking at price wise. I'm really not. Like, you know, I said, I didn't buy this thing. The ammo is hard to find. I went to 3 stores here in Utah. I tried Cabela's and Sportsman's, your typical ones. Then I went to Gunny's in Orem. Couldn't find any 250 Savage. Went up to Smith & Edwards up in Ogden. Couldn't find any 250 Savage. So if you get something like that, you're going to be ordering ammo, most likely. Or you'll be ordering, well, you can buy the powder, 30-31, 25 caliber bullets, no problem. If you reload, you'll probably have to order brass, though. We're going to take this thing out. I'll get some video shooting it at the range, see how it does. Just try to give you guys an idea of whether this might be a suitable gun for you. I'll get the reload and press set up and pump a couple rounds out and let you see that. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. Thanks for watching the video, and this is going to be a weird, strange, and interesting project going into deer season. So yeah, stay tuned. Alright guys, so it's a few days later. As you can tell, we've got some wind and not necessarily good conditions. This is the first day I was able to make it out. We're looking at a west to east wind. It's probably blowing 9 to 11. I'm not sure about it. We're shooting west to east, shooting could affect bullet flight. We're just shooting at 100 yards and it's not a crosswind, so I'm not particularly concerned by it. So I've got a few guns out here I'm shooting. Obviously, for the sake of what we've been talking about, we're going to start off with a focus on the 257. First time I've shot it, so let's see what happens.
interesting. I was right on the center mark, and I've got about a 3.5 inch group, about 4 inches high at 100 yards. So that's definitely not where I wanted to be, and definitely not acceptable accuracy wise, at least not to me. So we'll go back, reset up. I mean, I don't know if these bullets are, because they're 100 grain bullets, you know, the wind could be having a lot more of an effect on them than it would a heavier 30 caliber bullet or something, but we'll go reset.
I can't speak to that. When I do hit, this is the only 257. I know these bullets are made specifically. So I'm thinking these brass this rifle before should already be conformed to the chamber, and typically that'll improve consistency, which is great. These bullets is in fact great.
Now we're talking. Right there we're looking at about an inch. 1 MOA right there. I'll take that. I probably shouldn't have dropped it 14 clicks off the first ones. I don't know what the deal was with those loads. They were loaded. Not a very good combination of grains and bullet weight apparently. I'm going to bring it back up the same amount of clicks, because that's about how far down it is. Let the barrel cool for a few minutes, then we'll do one more 3-shot group here in the middle and see what happens. All right, guys, I can live with that any day. Dead center, we're right at another about a minute of angle again. So yeah, I cranked it back up 14 clicks. These loads were pretty well done, pretty consistent. There's your 250 Savage, just for fun, because I brought it out. Let's compare it to some 270 Hornady, I think it's the whitetail that I brought out, just to see. So this is the 270 again, just watching for recoil.
All right, so here we are. Got back from shooting our 250 Savage. All right, I'm messing with the camera here. So what's our final verdict? Where are we at with this thing? What's my final verdict on it? Well, we'll excuse the first group that we shot up at the top where it was all spread around. We got one MOA group down here. It might actually be a little bit under, but it's about one. We've got our second group you guys saw impact right dead in the center of the target. Right at one, if not slightly under. And then this was that third one I fired just to show you recoil. And you didn't see the impacts, but again, I fired pretty quick. The barrel was getting warm, and look at that. 1 MOA. So, dang, it's just I mean, it's a good shooting gun. I think the recoil is great. Definitely manageable for a new shooter, even an experienced shooter who's just averse to recoil, maybe have shoulder problems or whatever. The trigger on this particular model was not atrocious. It was no better and it was no worse than the trigger on the 270 that I fired and showed you guys. I'll tell you, it's a conundrum. Ultimately, it's an ugly rifle with ammo that's very, very hard to find. Even if you reload, where are you going to find the brass for it? You'll have to order it or whatever. If you come across one and it's a reasonable price, I'd say do it, especially if you got a 12, 13, 14-year-old that's needing to bump up from shooting, prairie dogs with a 223 and is ready for a deer rifle. I know the title of this video I put 250 Savage for Mule Deer. I haven't shot a mule deer with it yet, obviously, but I can't speak to the efficacy of a 100 or 110 grain bullet on mule deer. I've never shot him with one. I don't know. But at 100 yards, I don't think I'd hesitate. And I know, 25-06, you're in that same range as this rifle here, 120 grain. You got 10 more grains. But yeah, I don't know. Thanks again for watching, guys. We got the deer hunt coming up in a couple weeks. I've been bird hunting like crazy, so I'll be putting up a video soon about that. Babysitting a German short hair pointer this weekend. Been working him on some pheasant chucker, and it's just been a real active time for me. But yeah, the focus of the next few videos is going to be on the deer hunt. So reloading, shooting, and we'll keep you guys posted on what all happens. So thanks again for watching. I'd appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel if you find this stuff interesting. We'll catch you guys later.